Okay,
Oh
we've
my God,
started.
we are officially doing it.
How? I'm so excited. I can't believe after all of our talking that we're like here with our fancy microphones.
We'll get, I know, I was like, do I put it like this? Like, how does this work?
Yeah, right. It looks, yeah.
Well, everyone, whoever's listening, welcome to the first episode of Sex Ed and the City with Drew and Dr. G. We're so grateful to have you here. Uh,
Yes. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us and just listening to us ramble and talk about all the things.
we have a very limited idea where this trajectory of today is going to go. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think we have so many ideas that we want to share with folks. I think what's going to be hard is only doing it for a short time because we could gab for hours.
There's one thing we can do, it's gab.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe we should just start out with like introducing ourselves because, a lot of people we know will be here, but also just sharing like to people we don't know a little bit about ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. I'm totally down for that.
Okay.
You want to go first?
Oh, I was going to say that. No, you go first. No
Yeah.
pressure.
So, hi everyone. My name is Drew Miller. I use he, him pronouns. Currently a health and sex ed teacher at Bard High School, which is a public high school in New York. I have been teaching here for 5 years. I just got tenure this year. I'm also a coach.
Yes, you did it. Oh my God, you didn't tell me
Oh,
you
I didn't tell
won.
you.
Oh, congrats.
Well, they don't even tell the school either. It was like Christina had to keep emailing them and they're
Wow.
just like, yeah, you're fine. So I did it. And in true
Yay.
Drew fashion, it's like a year late. I was doing it up until the last day to submit,
Yeah.
if that says anything about my personality. But yeah, I grew up in central Pennsylvania. I lived there for most of my life, grew up there, went to college there, taught there for a bit, and then at around 27 I was figuring out my whole identity, coming to terms with being queer, being gay, and had to get the heck out of Dodge. So I moved to Brooklyn and I've been in New York now for solid 8 years. It's been amazing and so unexpected and just the absolute best, as you know, Dr. G.
Yeah, that's awesome. So can I like interview you for a second?
Whatever you want to ask. Yeah.
So
So
if you,
consensual.
right? Consent holder loading. If you weren't a teacher, well, like what was being a teacher like what you wanted to do, or you just happened to like have a beautiful accident into teaching? Or if you weren't a teacher, what would you do instead?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot. And the weird part is that I kind of always did want to be a teacher. I loved my teacher. Also, happy Teacher Appreciation Week to
Oh,
all
is
the
it?
educators out.
Let's
Yeah,
go, teachers. I love it.
Venmo all your teachers, give them the monies.
Right.
I've always wanted to be a teacher, and I think that's like a blessing and a curse. Like when I was younger, I loved my teachers. I loved them through high school. I just loved school and the way it made me feel. I had really good relationships with my teachers. So I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do. And I never really ventured far from that, which I think is like, I do wish sometimes that I had tried something else. But if I could do anything else, it would definitely be something. I think being a social worker would be great. That's still similar to being a teacher, but also like how do I say this? I don't want to say celebrity, but like a socialite.
Oh, hashtag famous. Okay.
I would love to be like Insta famous or just like
Oh,
travel
well,
big.
here we are. Here we are.
Now's our
With
chance.
our 3 followers. Yay. Shout out to our families. But I think it's really interesting that you said that you always want to be a teacher, because so did I. And there's this like common narrative, like in people not in education, that, that quote that I hate. It's like, if you can't do,
Exactly.
teach, or people just became teachers to have summer break off, or they couldn't do anything else, so they became a teacher. And of course, people come into education in like so many different ways, but there are so many of us that like we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I knew I wanted to be a teacher in high school, but pretty soon into my undergraduate journey, I figured that out, so I think it's I think it's so important for us to tell people that, and no matter how you came into teaching, it doesn't matter. But there is that really negative narrative about teachers that, they couldn't hack it, so they became a teacher. I hate that.
100%. Yeah. And we find like a lot of people, one, are not going into it right now just because of pay and the workload. You don't hear a lot of people that are like, I want to be a teacher. It does kind of seem like a lot of people frame it as like an afterthought or like a backup plan, which is kind of sad.
Right, because it is the most important job. Like, hello.
I think so.
Yeah, that's another day podcast for sure about like our society and how we value education and teachers. 'Cause it's definitely different in other places for sure.
Yeah. And you've done work well, let's get to your story too in a bit, but like you've done work in other countries and you've seen kind of how they operate in their systems and things like that. I've only ever been and taught in America.
Yeah. It's just a different, in some places, it's a different value system on teachers and education. Even if it's even countries that are poorly resourced, they may not have like the most richest schools, wealthy schools, but still the way teachers are treated is different.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of love here. They are slashing our budgets. We don't get resources. Yeah, that's one thing I really like about my school, Bard, is like my teaching load is a lot less and there's a lot more freedom, which is why like if I'm in New York.
Oh, wait, you're treated like a professional?
I am.
Right, as you are, as you should be.
You're right. Yeah, that's my own internal shit, right? We are professionals.
Yeah, and we should be able to. I mean, teachers have master's degrees, multiple master's degrees, and at Bard, so many people even have PhDs or their doctorate of some type. And so, but teachers should be respected regardless of which, what their degree is. But it's wild. People will say, oh, well, they're just a teacher. And I'm like, what do you mean just a teacher? When's the last time you were with 34 15-year-olds at once?
And then you get, and then you get into like, even within that, like the hierarchy of teachers, like it's always the science and math, and especially at Bard, like ELA, humanities, and like the kids even are like, they won't, not as much to me, but like the PE teachers, it's just like, it's just PE, hey, they are also teachers. They also did all these things.
Oh my gosh. I had a student once years ago ask me, do you need a degree to do this job? And I was like, when? Seen one of those times you have to be like, I'm professional right now, not Rachel. Because, one of those times you have to learn to just like, and let me not punch you in the face.
It's also like they were asking probably I would assume out of genuine curiosity.
No, he wasn't. He was being snarky.
Okay.
He was like, he literally said, do you like need a degree to even teach this class? Like he was very, that kid. Anyway, that's a good time. That's all of our fun teaching stories. But yeah, I was just like, okay, right. Yes.
Changing the culture around that.
The value of health and how health is the most important subject. Like your math, who cares what your math grade is if you're sick or can't get out of bed or can't like functionally move, or you're having so much mental, health crises. Like no one cares what your math score is at that point.
And I feel like in my community, at least, like the parents want more, like they want that info, they want it for their kids, but it's very much like a policy thing. Schools don't prioritize it. And I guess they don't feel the need to, because in New York, they need one credit and that's it. So they're not going to put more in than they need. They're going to pack the other subjects.
Yeah. Until health education is a graduation requirement, there will be not funding put into it. I mean, even in California, right? The state of California is doing great things around health education and sex education, yet it's still not a state graduation requirement. Therefore, districts can choose whether or not to have a health ed class, and sex ed is part of that. So even the mandates that they have, it's still oftentimes a teacher with little to no training teaching it, just saying, hey, there's this mandate, you teach it. And that's not everyone, of course. There's amazing health educators everywhere doing great work, but until we have those mandates backed up by funding.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah. We do the best we can and like
Yeah.
try to advocate for more, but it's a very slow burn
Yeah.
and it makes sense. I mean, how do I say this? Based on the way our world is right now and what's going on with people, you would think that people would want more of it because just like health issues, like mental health, like substance use is up. And, I mean, they just don't, I feel like they don't take health seriously. And that's for a variety of reasons as well. I don't know, I guess I just wonder if they took it more seriously or if the stigma wasn't there, like if things would be a little better. It just feels like a losing battle sometimes.
Well, and I was hoping, if we learn anything from the pandemic, right, this is the opportune moment for health education to be like, okay, like we've been waiting for this. So people finally realize it's important and this. And I think in some places it is. It's still slow going. And I think, health educators were burnt out from the pandemic as well. So I'm hoping that, some momentum continues to grow in that area because people understand, but it's sad that it's being overshadowed by all this political hoopla of just homophobic, transphobic, all the phobias, all the isms, which is affecting not only sex ed specifically, but in a subject that's often taught in health, and it's affecting health education. Across the board.
I mean, we always use Florida as an example, but like if they're even teaching it, which a lot of them are not, it's like, what can they even talk about with all these bills passing? It's like, can they even talk about like anatomy? It just feels like so restricted, so oppressive. Such a bummer.
Yeah, it's a scary time to be a teacher as well. I'm not in the classroom anymore, and I'm glad, and I'm based here in Florida. I wouldn't have a job if I was in the classroom in Florida. I would not have a job now, nor like, how would I don't know, as a high school health ed teacher, because, stuff about sexuality comes up all the time. And even in your other units, not even just your sex ed unit. So, I don't know. It's kind of wild, but it's interesting, this shift, right? Because I started my career. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about my journey. So yeah, I actually grew up in Oregon in a very small rural town. Picture Friday Night Lights, the series, which is like my favorite TV show of all time. Many reasons we can unpack. But so I grew up in Oregon, very small rural school. And I could not wait to get out of there. I was like, gotta go. This is not my vibe. And so I was just like, for me, the way out was through education. So I just did really well in school. And I was like, I'm going to college somewhere it doesn't rain. And I only applied to schools in Arizona because I was like, gotta get out of the rain. And so I went to University of Arizona. And I actually, my first major, my freshman year, was media arts because I wanted to be a DJ on the radio, and not like a party DJ like a good morning, this is WKXY and, blah, welcome. Blah. Yeah. So it's funny that we're here doing this podcast. I'm like, oh, full circle. But yeah, I ended up going to because I had student loans and work study, I got a job in this organization called Project SOAR, which was Student Opportunity for Academic Renewal. And so I was tutoring middle school students, mostly like on reading and things like that. And I just fell in love with that project. And then I went to a major fair, like, in like the Commons area of U of A. And I met Dr. Sheila Parker, who is amazing. And she was the head of the health science department, and they had a school health education branch. And I switched that week. Like, I remember the purple little brochure she showed me with like all the courses that I would take every semester. And I was like, these are all the things I love. So I switched right then. And then I started my career in Long Beach, California, taught there for 3 years. And I moved to New York in 2004. And my first year in New York, I wasn't teaching. I had gotten my master's in public health at that point. And so I was doing some, stuff with the health department, but I missed teaching. I was like, these adults, let's get back to the kids.
Valid.
So I got back into the school system in New York City. I tried out a couple different schools. Urban education in New York, the largest school district in the country, it's a beast. And so I had to find the good fit for me, but I ended up finally finding my fit, and I was there for 10 years. I loved that job. And then in 2015, I was like, it's time for something different. I started my PhD journey. I ended up doing a sabbatical in South Africa at the University of Cape Town, and finishing my PhD and all my research there. So I still do that. Then the pandemic happened. So that's like a block. We'll talk about that another time. But yeah, so then now I'm consulting, and I'm working with teachers and schools and young people and parents, just really working through all this stuff about sex ed. And it's so awkward for folks, and that's okay. So how do they actually talk about it when they want to and say, the quote unquote right things, right? There's not necessarily, but adults had the same sex ed that we did, little to none. So, people out there just trying to do their best. And so that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm excited to be here in this podcast. I think that you and I can give some good insight to folks and just have fun while doing it, right? We don't just be so serious.
Yeah, that kind of gets into like your why, right? I think we were going to talk about that as well. Like, we talked about our stories, like what's your, also, I think I knew that part of your story. You just told me earlier about like wanting to be a DJ, but I think I remember talking to you about SOAR way back when. I've heard your journey, and it's like the first time in your life you're actually not one teaching or two in a university. You have like 15 degrees.
Yeah. And I'm such a nerd. I love school. I was like, should I do a postdoc? And then I'm like, Rachel, stop it. First of all, I'm past the student loan cap, so I can't get any more student loans. But I'm like, Rachel, just stop. It's fine.
We're accepting donations for Rachel's loans, by the way.
Yeah, right. That's on me. I'll send you the link. My student loans. I'm so nervous for what happens in June with the whole thing. But yeah, should I talk about my why a little bit?
I would love to hear your why. Yeah.
So when I was growing up, I grew up before I was like 10 years old. I grew up in a house filled with a lot of violence, a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, lots of scary situations and things that people younger than 10 and many adults, we shouldn't have to see and go through. Mm-hmm. And throughout, like when I became a preteen, a teen, even things changed a little bit as I got older. I just really felt like I was doing life alone. I didn't have a lot of folks like guiding me. And that's no shade I don't want to give any shade to my parents and the other people that raised me, which we could talk about another time. Mm-hmm. But, I really just felt alone in the world. And I so desperately just needed like I would search out like adults and ask them questions. Like, I just want like someone like guide me, because I was such a good kid. And not that other kids are bad, but I like wanted to do good. And I had seen how, my upbringing, I was like, that was not good. I don't want to be like that. But how do I not be like that? And I was always searching and not finding it, and not finding adults that could like kind of guide me and give me some positive influence, or at least the positive influence that I needed, at that time as my perspective as a young person. And so I became a teacher because I wanted to be like that adult for younger kids. I wanted to be the person like I needed when I was that age, because I was very lost. I was very like, what do I do? And because of how I was raised and socialized, I didn't talk about it to people. So I thought I was the only person like going through these things. It wasn't until I got older that I realized I wasn't. But so that's my why. Like, that's why I became a teacher. And then why I do now is because, I hate this narrative of who teachers are, and this negative thing. And I really want to bring like the realness of teaching and how joyful and it is and how hard it is and how like the things that we do and how we get to know our young people is just really a different connection that people can understand unless you do it. So I really just want to bring that, to the forefront, and also help teachers. Like, teachers deserve support and they deserve to have fun while they're doing their jobs because they're brilliant. And so I really just want to, I hope to do is help folks and support them as they need it, but also shed some light to like folks not in education, in a positive way. They're like, oh, that's what it's like. Oh, that happened. And so they can really start to really just appreciate what some of our educators are doing and the challenges they're actually going through, and also their humanness, like, and also their people. Like, can we be nice to them? So
Yeah.
that's
You've
a little
talked
bit
so much about the like feeling like you had two lives as a teacher, like
Yes.
professional
Oh,
Dr. Gibson and personal Dr. Jean. You felt like you had to
yeah.
have these two identities. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was the hardest. And it's still something I struggle with. Like, I just recently made my Instagram public, and it was really hard because as a teacher, I felt I had to be, I was Rachel, but then I was Miss Gibson. And I struggled with these two personalities because as a teacher, you're held to a higher standard. But not only that, I taught health. It's like, no one can see me eating a fry or, having alcohol, or, I had to be like, all these things. And so I had such this hard time of navigating my real self and my professional self. Because also, I'm not going to go to a bunch of high schoolers. Yeah, I was raging last night. Like, that's inappropriate, but I started teaching when I was 23. Of course I was going out, right? But I wasn't like, it's not appropriate. Hey, guess I was so drunk last night. Like, no, that's not appropriate. But I remember once I was at a club when I first started teaching.
I know
One of
this
my
story.
students'
I know this story.
moms
Oh no, I
rocks
don't know
up.
this.
No, a student's mom. And she's like, Miss Gibson, let's party. And I was like, I have to leave immediately. Like, I cannot party with someone that's in my first period's mom. Like, this is just like not okay.
This was
Or
in New York?
no, that was in California.
Okay.
But like, I've been out on dates and the kids, and going out a date with someone, we've been drinking, and they're the kids, hey miss, and I'm like, oh no. Everyone's talking about who I was on a date with and this and that. And so I just struggled with this, like, wanting to be a positive influence, but also being in my 20s, because I started 2 weeks after I turned 23. That astounds me. I'm like, they let me be in a classroom by myself at 23. I was like, huh, interesting.
The young ones care a lot. Like,
Yeah.
usually go above and beyond. We're like old and
1000%.
jaded.
Yeah, I would work all the time. I would take work home. I would come
Yeah.
home. Like, I worked 14-hour days easily the first decade of my career.
Working another
Just 15,
job,
yeah.
coaching, like all
Yeah.
the things.
Oh, coaching. Yeah, it was a whole other job. It's like, yeah. So
You say, when you were talking about this, you framed it in like the past tense. Do you feel like you also said you still struggle with like the part about making your Instagram public? And do you feel like there's been a lot of growth in that, or do you, like, where are you at in that separation today?
I still struggle with it because as a sexologist, the research, we know that sexologists are often sexualized more, right? So like, I don't even tell everyone what I do, especially new people, especially cis straight men, right? Because often the first thing is, oh, what can you teach me? And I'm like, I'm just here trying to have a coffee, like, calm down. So like, there is that, like, I can't tell everyone what I do.
I get that too. It's like,
Yeah, I'm
what do
like,
you teach me? I'm just like, shut the
ew.
fuck up. You're
I'm
in
like,
also, my ring light's not on. I'm an idiot.
oh,
There
neither
we
is mine,
go. Sorry, keep going.
yeah. So I don't know. So I do still struggle with it, and I think Yeah, I still struggle with it. I think making my Instagram public was, I mean, it's been private forever, which is why I only have like 300 followers, because, and I can't do like multiple Instagram accounts. Just one. And so, I had to go through like millions of times removing pictures that of my nephew. I don't want pictures of like
Oh,
young kids
yeah.
to be in the public eye. There's pictures where I'm holding a drink and I'm about to be 46. I can drink alcohol, but I still deleted those because in my back of my head, I was like, ooh, and part of that is social media, right? People can take things and say whatever they want. But I do feel like I have to be more careful. But I also think that's just some of my own issues about being worried about judgment and needing people to like me and
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
I was going to say something. Now I can't remember it. Yeah, no, it's really ingrained in us in teacher education to protect yourself at all costs. Like, I remember like feeling fear of like them finding any photos, regardless of whether they were bad or not. Like, change your Facebook name. Everything is private. And like, that's been hard to unlearn. But it honestly feels good. And it feels more, for me at least, I feel like those two identities are more of the same now, right? Like, I don't see my kids out in New York often, but like last week, like a student like said they saw me. I was walking without my shirt on down Avenue A because I was going to the park.
As you do. Yeah.
And she's like, I saw you without your shirt on. I was like, or what'd she say? Me and my mom saw you. I was like, okay.
You're like,
it's like, oh God.
yeah.
Was I holding anything in my hand? Like, what was
like like what was I doing? Well, like this feeling of like, oh God, like even when I'm not doing anything, I used to run into kids on the subway.
Yes.
And I used to run into kids when I lived in Washington Heights. I run into students all the time. And I'd hear like from across this road, yo, Miss Gibson. And I'd be like, freeze. And I'd be like, am I doing anything I shouldn't be doing for a teacher? I'd be like, I'd have this anxiety, even though I'm like walking to like Rite Aid, but I would be so,
what am I doing wrong?
Like, I'm like, is there a curse? Like, did I just, I don't know. I was always bothered by that, but also like, think about how much social media has changed, right? Like when I first started teaching, Facebook was invented in like 2003. I started teaching in 2000.
I got it 2006, I think, when I went to college. Yeah, it's evolved
so much. I remember when I made my Facebook, my only account, private, because there was another teacher at the school I worked at that didn't like something I put and printed out all my Facebook posts.
No.
Highlighted what they thought was inappropriate and showed it to my principal. I had a meeting in the principal's office with everything. First of all, who prints on my, and it was like, it wasn't even anything. It's not like I was naked or like doing drugs or like something.
Yikes. Sounds like a Karen for sure.
Definite Karen. So I think that's the incident that really also triggered it more, because I was like, oh, these people out here are vindictive. They're just trying to get me in trouble. So I'm like,
oh, yeah.
Can you imagine that? Who has that time? I'm going to print 17 pages and highlight what I don't think is correct. Like,
what was I? That's such like a nasty thing to do. So immature. So
just like gross. Like,
boomers.
Live your own life. Like, what are you obsessed with me?
But the thing is, kids find everything. Like, what was I was talking to a kid on the track team last week, and he's like, I forget what they said, but they're like, oh yeah, back in your modeling career. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I've never been a model. And they pull up a picture from it's the picture of me vaping. Have you seen that one where it looks like professionally done?
Yes. Of
course, somebody found it, and it's just like been screenshotted so many times, like little words on it. And I'm just like, that was for fun. I was not modeling. And also, damn it, that they have this photo.
The memes. Oh, the memes.
Oh yeah, we should give a shout out to the meme page at some point. They are hysterical.
So good. But I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to hear about your why. I don't think I know your why. Maybe I
Why,
do.
why
but
for
I want
teaching or why for the podcast?
both and.
Yeah. I was reflecting on this before, and I think why did I start teaching was because I love school, and that just felt like a natural progression. It felt like something within my capabilities. I'm a very like safe, kind of risk averse person. So when I started, I think that's definitely why, and I really enjoyed it. I felt purposeful. And then when I was like coming to terms with being gay, just seeing, I don't know, I learned so much about myself from the young people. And they've given, like, some of them came out to me and then like literally gave me the courage to come out to my friends.
Oh,
They,
wow.
I just felt so, I don't know, they give us so much. And that was such a
Yes.
special part for me. So yeah, part of like going to grad school at Widener, which I didn't know, it was kind of subconscious. We
Uh-huh.
both got our masters in human sexuality. You got your PhD, but like that was definitely a way for me to process my queerness. And I
Mm.
definitely did not know that at the time, but figuring that out was like pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And
And
now,
that's how we met. And what a great friendship it
oh my
is.
God, yeah, we've taken care of each other, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure.
But Rachel got me this job at Bard because she was transitioning out to a new role. And I was like, thank God, get me out of this charter school that's running me into the ground.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, now I view teaching, it's like a way to like liberate. Honestly, the shit we are
Mm.
talking about in health class
Yes.
is the most important. And I'm not just talking about like
Mhm.
how to be safe with drugs. I'm talking about dismantling homophobia, transphobia, racism,
Mhm.
sexism, anti-blackness, things like that. And it's just,
Mhm.
it really is powerful because you can see the kids like want to talk about it,
Mhm.
and they care. And the ones who are like saying things is just because like they don't understand. I truly
Yeah.
believe that every kid cares and wants to be a better person. And this is a, like,
Mhm.
it is the tool to do it. You talk about
Yeah.
everything through all these lenses, and if I think that's my why now. It's like I feel like I'm making, we are helping, especially in this shitstorm of a political world. Like I I don't know,
Yeah.
better values, I guess. Better, but
Yeah.
more accepting, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's amazing that you're getting this opportunity to do that at this time, right? Because it is such a critical time that young people need a space and a voice to really work through some of this stuff
Mhm.
because they've been with their families and their communities, and that's great. And also, especially like kids with a lot of privilege, like there's a time when you're learning about yourself and you're learning about others. And especially what I love about Bard is it is such a diverse school that they're like, oh, they can really like have a chance to learn and grapple with some of this stuff
Yes.
that it's hard. It's not easy to talk about race and sexuality, and those things are hard for adults, let alone when you're like 14, 15 and you're just like, what's happening? I just want to be cool, you know? And so
Yeah.
I really commend
Yeah.
you for, because so many teachers have left, and, rightfully so. It's a hard time to be a teacher, but I really commend you for sticking out with it and doing the work with the young people at this time because, I hate the phrase now more than ever because everyone uses it, but seriously, um,
Yeah.
it's a time to really get into this stuff and to really educate our young folks.
It feels good. And like these young people are still learning it, but they already know a lot because they're so exposed to like
Mhm.
social media and things. So they're coming in like every year, it's like they know more than the years before. Like mental
Yeah.
health is a totally different game now.
Mhm.
They're like, when are we talking about it? And like they have all the things already. It's
Yes.
cool. So that's enabled us to kind of push the rigor bar a little farther.
Mhm.
Um, but as for my why for the podcast, it's definitely like a pleasure project. Like, you're my bestie. We've talked about this forever. We vibe so well. I think I've kind of felt like I've been doing the same job at Bard for like 5 years. So I'm kind of just like, I change stuff, but like some days are just like, okay, like I've done this lesson before. So I'm like looking for something else. Like I started a TikTok as well, which has been joyous. And this just feels like something we could both do really well and have a lot to offer. And I think everyone is super curious about what we're doing. Every time I go out and people ask like what I do, it's like I'm a teacher and they're like, what are you talking about? And then it's always like they're sharing their experience. And most of the time it's not good, but it's like everybody has a what is that? It's like a tie or like a curiosity about what's going on, because it's only things you're hearing now is bad stuff and banning stuff. Like, what are the joys? What are the successes what are the kids like? You know?
Are you like the sex educator of your friend group?
I'm trying to think. I would say so. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, especially with like, I was thinking like, yeah, with like gender and stuff and like terminology and like sexual identities and things like that. Lots of questions. Are you? I'm definitely getting the vibe.
Oh, 1,000%. I'm the sex educator for my mom. She's like, oh, my friend has this bump. Can we send you a picture? I'm like, no.
Bump?
You know, like,
like a breast lump
or something. No, like a lump on her vulva. And they're like, can we send you a picture? Tell us what it is. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Or like, I just, and it's what's interesting because I'll be with friends and they'll be talking about things. And I tend to just be quiet because I have this thing. I don't want to be the know-it-all because I've been told I'm a know-it-all, but they'll be talking about things. I'm like, this is a hot, bubbly mess. Like, absolutely not. And then they'll ask me and I'll be like, actually,
I've been waiting for this. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just like listening sometimes like, ooh, okay. Or like a friend of mine who's a teacher, she had someone come into her classroom and do a sex ed lesson with her kids. And then she's like telling me all these things. She's like, did you know this? I'm like, yeah. And if those, and so she works at the school I used to work at. I'm like, and when they had me as a teacher, they knew that as well. So it's just funny. Yeah, I try to just do a lot of listening though, because, I just don't want to be well, actually, friend, that's annoying.
I like to bring most of my stuff. I wouldn't even say is with sex. I think a lot of it, especially being like a cis gay man, is with like talking about bodies and foods and like these like anti-fatness things that people are saying they don't know they're doing. I feel like that's the shit. Like I'm like constantly, I don't want to be the call out person, but I'm like, people are doing this all the time and just don't know they're doing it.
1,000%.
Oh my God, it drives me wild, but it makes sense. We don't talk about it unless you're in health classes, right?
Yeah, I find myself talking about relationships a lot, right? So I'm single. I'm not married, never have been married, have zero plans or desire to get married. But so people in my age group are either just like that or wanting to get married and not finding someone, or married and many unhappily or unfulfilled, and a few married happily. So it often comes to talking about relationships and children and, and those type of things. And then now we're starting to talk about menopause a lot, because now we're all at the age where that's creeping up on us, or many of us are already in it. So it in circles with other women, that's kind of like the conversations I'm having, where before it was more when we were younger, like talking about like, how to anal sex, or what is this STI, or or telling people, a lot of people, especially like straight folks, a lot of women don't know about PEP and PrEP. And so I'd be like telling them about, they're like, wait, what? That exists? Because it's not really marketed to that population. So that's how kind of like I am with the friends.
That's a really good point. Like changes based on where you at in your life, your age, things like that. Yeah. I wonder what conversations I'll be having. Yeah. I mean, we look back and like how our curriculum and stuff has changed. Like, what's it going to look like?
Oh, so different. Yeah.
Will I still have a job?
You will. In New York, you will.
Final question. We should probably wrap up. We've been chatting for a bit.
Yeah.
I was thinking of like a question I could ask you, and I think I know the answer already. I need to ask some that I don't know. Do you have a favorite podcast that you like to listen to? And if not, do you have like a TV show that you like or are watching currently, or a book or some entertainment?
Yeah. Well, I really love memoirs.
Hmm.
So that's my favorite type of book. That's what I love to read the most. So I actually just finished Minka Kelly's memoir. It's called Ask Me Anything or Tell Me Everything.
Should I know this person? I feel
Minka
embarrassed.
Kelly, be ashamed of yourself. So it's she's an actress and she got really well known from the TV show Friday Night Lights, where she played Lila Garrity. I could do a whole dissertation about
I'm
that
gonna
show.
look her up.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Uh,
Dissertation.
yeah, no, seriously, it's an amazing show. But I just read her memoir and it was surprisingly, not that I didn't think it was going to be good, but it is so much better than I even could imagine. And for many reasons. So I just finished that. So I love a good memoir. I want to write my own.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, I do. I'm trying to do a lot of reading that is not academic these days.
Yeah, keep
Because,
it fun,
yeah.
keep it light, keep it pleasureful.
Yeah. What about you? I think I
yeah,
know the answer also, but
I don't listen to podcasts a lot, but I do listen to like stuff to get the news. So I'll do like the Daily or NPR. But my favorite, which is, I want to send it to you because it's just hysterical. There's two drag queens from RuPaul's Drag Race, Bob the Drag Queen and Monet Exchange, and they're best friends. And it's called Sibling Rivalry because they're like drag sisters or daughter sister, but it's just them talking about the most random things, and they're so silly and so funny. So I'm like at the gym listening and just like, you know, I envision us like them.
Yeah.
Because we're just so silly and fun too.
Yeah.
Books, I'm in a book club. So reading Giovanni's Room right now, which I've already read. Great book. Yeah. So
Love it.
not too much TV at the moment.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I can't believe we are just finishing recording our very first episode. We've been talking about this for like a couple years now.
Yeah.
But what I'm excited for is this like journey and to see where it takes it, where we go with it, and to invite some of our amazing like network on to chat with us and, to talk about all the things.
We know so many great people, and even if nobody wants to be on it, like we could stay here and do this all day anyways.
To ourselves, exactly. All right, well, I guess signing off episode 1 of Sex Ed in the City. See you all episode 2.
Bye everyone.